you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you. We love you. We couldn't do this show without you because otherwise we'd be just sitting around talking to ourselves, which is pretty much what I do the rest of the day. When I'm on the show, I just talk to my dog, and my dog, I realized 10 years ago, never talks back. So I'm clearly insane, but we all know that. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may buy advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Anyway, we have an amazing author on the show, a wonderful young man. We're going to be talking about his latest book that just came out, Unleash Your Financial Superpowers, How the First Generation Wealthy Do It, and how you can too. He's referring to superpowers and financial, by the way. Greg Luken joins us on this show, as always. How do the first generation wealthy do it? Anyway, that's probably a different book. That's maybe for the OnlyFans. So we're going to talk to Greg about his insights in his book and everything else that goes into it. He is the founder of Luken Investment Analytics. He began developing math-based investment solutions for clients in the early 1990s. For more than 4 decades, he has been working primarily with the first generation wealthy, men and women who have built their own wealth from nothing, along with leading a wealth management and investment analytics firm. He founded a broker-dealer, an online institution and analysis platform, if I can learn to speak today, and created published indexes. He served as a mutual fund portfolio manager and received his first securities registration in 1988. That was 2 years after I graduated high school, kids. Welcome to the show. How are you, Greg?
Great to be here with you, Chris.
There you go. It's great to have you as well. And what do you have against second, third, and fourth generation wealthy people? Like, why are you all focused up on the first?
The second, third, and fourth, they just did a lot better job of picking their parents than the first generation did.
Wait, there was an option? I missed that on the form. Damn it. Greg, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the internet? And tell us 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
Sure. So we're on the internet at Luken.pro, and that's Luke Skywalker with an N on the end. It's Luken.pro. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we help the first generation wealthy make smart decisions about their money so they can ultimately just do what they want to do.
And what are some of the complications that are different between first generation wealth and I don't know, the Rockefellers or something?
There are several psychological pitfalls. You know, if you didn't grow up sitting around the dinner table talking about concepts in business, or you know, like you write about concepts in leadership, you know, maybe your parents were, you know, postal workers or government workers or teachers or whatever, but there wasn't wealth to talk about the strategies on there. So you end up with this foot in the old world where you didn't have wealth, and then a foot in the new world where you do. And so there's things that show up like imposter syndrome, where you feel like an outsider among your peers, or FOMO, the fear of missing out. The most common one we hear is FOMO. I may have made that one up. It's the fear of messing up, and I think you could probably put in whatever your favorite verb is there, the, you know, FOSU or whatever. And those things can really paralyze or cripple people. I was talking to a friend, a fellow entrepreneur, just a couple of weeks ago, and he said, Greg, I sold my business, had a great exit. It was enough money for me not to have to work for the rest of my life, but I knew I could only afford 2 mistakes. The problem is I made one. And now I'm paralyzed because it's, do I really have to go up to bat and risk, you know, this is my last strike. Do I really do anything? And so you can experience that paralyzation.
Yeah. I incorporated all of that in my run. I grew up poor, and so I wanted to become successful so that I could make up for all the things and then have all the things too. And
Right.
so when I got successful with our companies, I started buying all the things. And I was miserable. I was unhappy. Everyone hated me. It seemed like the more I did for people, the more the hands were held out. You know, the party was going, as the band Styx would say, as long as I was buying, the party ran. But as soon as I stopped buying, everyone's like, this guy's a jerk. And you're just like, no, I'm just really tired of paying for everything. And then also, you know, it was hard to deal with. I mean, this is back before social media. Social media, for all of its fallacies, has a great resource of community where if you need to find answers to something or find a support group of people that are like yourself, you can find it, usually. And that or there's an OnlyFans for it. We do a lot of OnlyFans callback jokes on the show. It's an easy, it's a cheap shot. So, but that's pretty much the podcast should have been named Cheap Shot. I think, I don't know. Anyway, it sounded like funny in my head, but you know, and so the only thing that we had in the old brick and mortar world when I came up in the 90s was, you know, if you really wanted to get a business advisor, you had to pay for some sort of attorney or have an expensive board or some other BS that would cost you a small fortune, you know, and yeah, it was hard because it was my first time going through the rodeo. And you kind of felt like you're on a high wire, you know, on a balancing high wire all the time. And yeah, you're right. That fear of falling off, that fear of fucking up. And the more successful you became, the higher and higher that wire seemed to go. And you're like, you know, I can't quit my job anymore and just go to work at McDonald's. You know, my income's so far out of whack with the average human being. I can't quit my job tomorrow. Like, I have to keep these plates spinning or else I'm really a mess. And then I had to pay for all the payments on all the shit I bought, you know, right. The BMWs and houses and the cars and, you know, yada, 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 all the junk in my house. And yeah, I identify with all that. Yeah. What people go through.
And what you're talking about that storyline that resonates with so many people. You know, you can't manufacture hunger. You had that, had hunger and so you focused on doing businesses and running them well. But then at some point you get that, you know, Waffle House hash brown life where you're scattered, smothered, and all covered up. You know, you're trying to manage a family.
Which pancake houses are you going to, buddy? No, I'm just teasing. I think we all know they're kind of wild. Yeah. Especially at 2 a.m. when they after hours or something. Everyone goes out and fights in the parking lot.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is what we found is communicating this like this, that, hey, your first gen wealth, it's different. And people go, wow, I felt like I was the only one on the, you know, island of misfit toys. And, you know, to hear that, I said this in a room full of entrepreneurs. There were about 40 entrepreneurs. And I said, I know it doesn't apply to anybody in this room, but you may know somebody who's experienced imposter syndrome before. And the room erupts in laughter because everybody's sitting there going, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We've all, and I experienced, I think, a lot of that at the time because you're like, your brain goes, you're just a poor kid from the streets. And you know, and then everyone fights you when you're coming up. At least in the 90s they did. You know, there's lots of regulations we had to deal with. And you know, it wasn't easy like now where you just go buy a GoDaddy $20 website and you throw stuff up and you're like, pay me. You know, you had to invest. You had to sign a 3-year brick and mortar lease. You had to hire the employees. You had to hire you had to buy all the furniture. You know, you had to install the phone lines. You had to do like all this investment up front, and then you just pray and cross your fingers. You're like, I hope this idea works. It makes profit, eh? Otherwise, we're really screwed. And you know, you're just waiting for that first phone to ring. Those of you who are Gen Z can Google what phone means. Anyway, so you've written the book to help them deal with some of these issues. These, you know, it's kind of a transfer identity, really, when it comes down to it, because you're kind of, like you say, you're stuck in the old world and you're in this new world.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And Chris, the other thing that we we have seen, but actually we've done some research to put some numbers behind it. Of course, it's going to vary year by year, but if you look at the research by Deloitte or Capgemini or Fidelity, there are about 170,000 new millionaires a year. Mm-hmm. And if you fast forward 10 years, somewhere around 50% of them will still be millionaires.
Only 50% survival rate?
And so what happens is, if you made it yourself, and you're older, you tend to hang on to it. If you made it and you were young, you tend to see it dwindle away. If you inherited it, I mean, think about how many stories you hear about people who won the lottery and 7 years later they're filing bankruptcy. And so it's are they developing the strategies and the mindset and the behaviors to, as you said, keep those plates spinning and keep things working.
Yeah. Until the 2008 recession comes along, wipes out all your businesses. I'm coming. But yeah, I spent all mine on hookers and blow.
Is
that in your financial plan that you advise people?
Actually, we talk about, we're going to do a little callback to hookers and OnlyFans. One of the financial villains that we've identified, we named her Fin Porn, and not to be confused with Finnish porn, but with financial pornography. And the whole idea that, the news cycle is so short, and pornography is, that perversion of something that's good or positive, and it's pornography is not real. And so there's one thing to consume financial information. It's another thing to get all stirred up and all excited about something you can't do anything about. And that's how we define financial pornography. And that's one of the villain. I don't know if she has an OnlyFans account or not.
Yeah. Fin porn, I thought that was like some accountant ladies running around doing Intuit software. Don't know what that means. But you can find it. I'm sure there's a channel for everything now.
I believe that.
There you go. So tell us about your upbringing. What got you into finances and doing all the stuff you do? And you've been doing this for a long time. What do you love about it, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, what I love is helping other people, helping other people do things they weren't sure that they could do. And so whether that's with this work or with, with kids or coaching, it's just great to see people do something that you can see their potential, and they may not be able to see it in themselves. And there's so many people that have poured into me. It feels great to be able to help other people that way. My parents were school teachers in Kentucky. My dad also had a side gig. He had a business. There was, we never went without food, but it wasn't. We weren't talking about tax strategies around.
You weren't setting up trust there at the dinner table.
No. And so I kind of took a circuitous route, the long and winding road. I went to college, studied biology, dropped out, played music on the road professionally for a few years. Went back, finished up, got a degree in English, and then started diving deep on math and the markets. And, never would have imagined 35 years ago I'd be where I am today. It's just, divine providence and a few hard knocks along the way.
I mean, when I was graduating high school in 1986, and a couple years later, you were, I think, getting your securities degree or something, or securities license.
Thanks for pointing out how old I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a couple years older than me, technically, right? Then,
more than that.
Your math is better than mine, obviously, because you're a pro at this. But I remember looking at the time and seeing that there were three big places to be to really make money and be successful. One was the stock market and finances, which is the field you're in, banking, which is kind of the same thing, real estate. And what was the other one? The stock market, banking, real estate, and the stock market. And so you can see that was where the power was and the money was. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go do that. And then I went and started studying to be a stockbroker, and then Black Friday happened. That kind of threw a curve. But it was a Black Monday or Black Friday. It was whatever it was bad. Yeah. And my brokerage division shit the bed over it. They were the ones who were going to bring me on once I graduated school. But, the future's still there. The stock market's still highly relevant. Finances, people, money management is still really more important than ever, really, because you're just having to constantly fight to preserve wealth. Even once you get wealth, you kind of talked about how, I think you said 50% of those people that become successful or millionaires, they blow it. And I think a lot of times they do it because they're new to it. They don't know how to handle it. Like I said, I dealt with the imposter syndrome too. My brain would say, you're just some stupid shit kid who grew up poor. Your family was on welfare part of the time. I couldn't bring friends over the house because they would see the welfare food in cans, because it's marked. Yeah. And they'd be like, "Oh, your parents are on welfare." And, it was a thing. But then when you became ultra successful and, you outgrow your friends, you outgrow your family, you outgrow a lot of things, and you live in a world that a lot of people don't understand either. Like, they don't understand what your problems are at that level. And, you don't have anyone you can really talk to about it. At least back then you didn't. It was really hard to, I couldn't find your book on Amazon because Amazon didn't exist yet. And why didn't you write this sooner? 30 years ago.
Good question. But it just seemed like there really, the more people I ran into, the more there was a need for it. You're like the stories that you're sharing, it's so common. And the thing of it is, it's really hard sometimes to take the mask off in public and say, I'm going through a tough time. And then, people who may not understand say, what's going on? I'm trying to keep all these plates spinning because this business, and they go, oh yeah, you own your own business. Everything's unicorns and roses for you.
Oh yeah, you make in a month what we make in a year. You make in 20 minutes doing day trading in the stock market what the average person makes in a year. And people, like you mentioned, they do put you in a box. People would come ask to borrow money from me. And I'd be like, my loan officers or my employees and stuff. And I'd be like, how come I get this privilege? Why can't you go to a bank or your family? And then because you're rich. And there's nothing that is there. I'm sure there are other things, but there's few things that are more alienating when someone identifies that they've put you on that marker of you're rich. And you're like, you don't understand, number one, the bills I have, and number two, the problems and challenges I have, and really, it's hard. One of our shakedown lawsuits, we when you become successful, you get shakedown lawsuits. It's fun. It's the way people do war. Rich people do war. We asked the person who was trying to shake us down for money, an ex-employee, we asked him on the stand, why did you sue Chris Voss and his partner? Because they're rich, they can afford it. And anyway, people put you in a box. And I used to tell people, I feel like I live in a gilded cage. I have all this money, I have all this success, I built it from zero. But I just feel like it's a cage because you're up on the high wire, you can't come down. Yeah, I feel what you're talking about. And it's alienating. You get alienated from people. And then sometimes people make it a deal. Like, you're just successful now, so you're just fucking above us all. And you're just like, well, yeah, I am. No, I'm just, you got to Machiavellian a little bit. But no, you're just like, hey man, I'm still the same guy I went to high school with, Oh no, you got your cars and your things. And, I used to have dates that would do that to me. They'd be like, why do you have to have all these cars and multiple houses? Why you got to, spend all this money taking me out to restaurants? And you're like, I grew up poor. I'm trying to make up for, you kind of have I don't know if you want to talk about this or you talk about it in the book, but there's kind of a wound there that you're trying to heal by becoming successful. And that's part of the carry. I don't know if you call it a trauma.
Yeah.
But that's part of maybe that's part of the imposter syndrome thing. There's a wound there that you're carrying.
It is.
You're still that poor kid from, what's that? Who's that hip hop female star? She's still so-and-so from the hood. Jackie from the Hood or something like that. I don't know the reference, but you're still carrying that wound.
Yeah. So that in the book, we frame it as the superhero story arc, right? Every superhero is walking along, living an ordinary life, and then something happens to them. And so that's part of their origin story, whether they're hit with gamma rays or bit by a radioactive spider, or their parents, put them in a pod and ship them off to Earth. And the same thing happens. We're trying to draw that parallel with our money origin story. Whatever that was, you had those cans that were marked welfare, and you didn't want people coming in your house. And that's part of Chris Voss's origin story. And you don't get over that. But what we can do is, and we have an exercise in the book to identify what is that origin story? What were the lessons you learned from that? And to evaluate, are those lessons, are those beliefs still serving you?
Yeah.
If it gives you that hunger to get the life you want, to live the life you want with the people you want, doing what you want, that's great. And at some point, we also see sometimes people have those beliefs that it worked for them at one point, but the strategy that got them where they are is not the strategy that's really going to get them to the life that they want to live. So really looking at that origin story, we all have it. I remember standing in McDonald's, reaching in my pocket and looking at the change. I moved out on my own and I said, I got enough for a French fry and a small hamburger, or a hamburger and a small Coke, but I can't get all three. And I remember looking around thinking, everybody in here is just walking up and getting a hot apple pie and, supersize that. And I'm looking at it going, I don't have the choices. I don't have the freedom to order anything off the McDonald's menu that I want. And that stayed with me. And I said, I don't want to feel that.
And that's when you start your own OnlyFans, folks. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that, kids. That's bad. The OnlyFans callback is the joke for the show. Let's talk about your website that you do, Luken Wealth Management, the advisory that you give. I see that you have some offerings here. Tell us about some of those things.
Sure. Essentially what we do is we start with the wealth roadmap. There are 3 major reasons people fail financially. So we address those 3 with the process. Those 3 are also, if we invert them, those are also the 3 superpowers that the successful first-gen wealth possess. And so making sure we have a roadmap. And Chris, this is going to sound just like running a successful business to you. You're going to listen to this and go, oh, that sounds really straightforward. It's about creating that clarity around the plan, the clarity around what are the outcomes, what's the why here, that magnetic vision of the future, so that when there's noise, and there inevitably will be, that we can clear that out. We create a concrete step-by-step plan of action, and then we create a process to make sure that there is consistent execution. So what that means is we have to look at not only how do we invest, when do we invest, where do we invest, but it's also what is the appropriate tax strategy. You own multiple businesses, so should those be LLCs or S Corps or C Corps or partnerships, and what are the pros and cons there, and what about the estate planning? Anything that the risk pieces. So what are those things that can affect your money? And let's get the things in your life organized so that you can have what you want when you want it.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that was one of my problems. I got successful and got money, and then I was like, well, what is next? What's the next level? Like I just hit bank and I achieved, a bunch of my dreams. But then, like you say, I mean, I didn't really have a plan for after that, because it was just like, what do? I don't know. You get more money and spend it. And you just kind of, but there wasn't like any purpose behind it. What is my purpose? What am I trying to do? And I thought my purpose was like, being an investor and making money. But one of my other problems that I had was I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. Like all the vehicles of business that we've had, I did because they were convenient and I was an investor in them and the CEO, and I enjoyed being the CEO and the innovator and the guy, but I didn't enjoy the companies. I didn't enjoy the business. It wasn't my passion, and a lot of entrepreneurs are lucky. They kind of find something they really love and they develop it, and their passion. And I didn't have any of that. And that was a real problem for me because it became really hard to show up for work every day, even though you're making extraordinary amounts of money and stupid spending, hookers and blow, and
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So what is important about success to you?
I don't know, man. What is important about success to me? I've grown a lot since then. So I think giving back, being able to have, what's the thing that's on my phone here? Give me 1 second. I'll tell you what it's. Discipline equals freedom. I believe this is from Jocko Willink. So discipline equals freedom, and so it's being able to be free to do what I want and to be able to have the time and freedom to make the choices and investments in my life. I like to give back a lot. I like to help people. And people would come to me and they would be like, "It's so great you do what you love," and I go, "I don't love any of this." They'd be like, "What the fuck?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm running multiple companies at the same time. It's a pain in the ass, the thousands of employees. I don't love any of it. I don't have any passion. I don't give a shit about mortgages. Like, how am I supposed to get passionate about that? Ooh, let's give out loans or something, And then we had our courier company and the other companies, and I was just like, I just don't love any of this. And like, what would you want to do? And I'm like, and that became kind of a problem for a few years where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. And that was so I like what you have, where you help your clients understand what is the next steps, what are you really trying to accomplish, what's your purpose. And that was what was missing in the example I'm giving to everyone.
Well, it sounds like the example you were giving expressed some pain, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I find it helpful to believe it's true. Mm-hmm. And that is, all pain, all psychological pain, is a result of a lack of clarity. I don't know if that's true or not.
It was true. I almost cried a few times when people first asked me about it. It kind of hit me right in the shtuck there. Yeah. And I almost broke down a couple times. Like, I just sat there just going, I don't know. I realized I didn't love anything I did. So yeah, it was painful. You're right.
Yeah. And so getting that clarity about what is helpful, what is important for me, has been really clarifying. In I'll share this. In 2006, I got an idea, a vision of what I really wanted my business to look like, my life to look like. Mm-hmm. And I really had one of those moments where I said, I can't get there from here. I have the business I have. I don't have the business I want. Uh-huh. And so what I did was, actually in 2007, sold most of my business. And you've heard of that Pareto distribution, or the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule. And I did the analysis, and mine was not 80-20, it was 91-11. 91% of my profitability came from 11% of my clients. And so I went from 250 households down to 17 core clients. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't be all things to all people, but we could take care of all this stuff and do a quality job for a limited community. And it has grown tremendously from there. But it was really difficult. And in that process, I was talking to a coach, and I said, his name was Bill. And I said, Bill, I don't think I can do this. It's so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And his response to me was, it was in really kind of a rude kind of way, the kindest thing he could have ever said to me. He said, I'm confused. Is your goal the goal, or is your comfort the goal?
Huh. I like that. So,
and I said, the goal is the goal. And okay, you may have to be uncomfortable. Kind of, hey, if the goal is to do 50 push-ups you may have to be uncomfortable on the pathway to get to where you can do 50 push-ups. So that's the goal is the goal. Being comfortable all the time is not the goal.
I like that. Maybe we should put that on a cup or a shirt. The goal is the goal.
The goal is
be
the goal.
comfortable. Because it's working towards goals. It's not comfortable. It's not supposed to be comfortable. That's the whole point of working towards something. I mean, if you've got something, you don't have to work for it. You're pretty comfortable. People can get a free ebook download on your website. Tell us about that, and maybe some of the other resources or offerings you have. There's a tab on why choose us as well, et cetera, et cetera.
So on the website, Luken.pro, you can get an ebook, the biggest mistakes the affluent make and how to fix them. And this covers a wide array. That ebook is free. And Luken.pro/book takes you to the page for this. It's also available at anywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon. I don't know. Might be available on Fans Only. I don't know.
Or stay tuned. They had podcasts, like just normal podcasts, like not porny stuff. They had like normal podcasts on OnlyFans, and they were trying to get everybody who had podcasts to come over there, and we're just like, I don't know about all that. They're like, do other things too. They tried that for a while, and I think they're just like, no, I think you guys just do one thing really well. So I like what you guys do there. I like what you're talking about, because first generation wealth, this is something I really never thought about, but I definitely experienced all the things we discussed today in the examples I've given. It was a real problem. And I was, at the time, I finally came up with a response to people where they're like, what would you want to do if you could do anything? And I'm like, I think when I retire, I want to go get a piece of property in Wyoming or not Idaho, but where I could have a wolf preserve, or I could have a husky. I'm really big into dogs and huskies and wolves, and I think I would love that. I love being around dogs. Maybe it's just because I've been around so many people. The more I know people, the more I love dogs. Yeah. But I think that's where I'm at. Yeah. But no, I mean, to me, that would be heaven. Of course, I'd have to have, plenty of money to have somebody else shovel the poop. But having a wolf preserve or dog preserve, now it's changed. I mean, one of the things we did in 2020 was we changed the trajectory of the podcast, the format of the podcast, to what I wanted to do instead of what I thought everyone else maybe wanted to hear about. And so I love my podcast. It's the one thing, it's the first thing I've ever fallen in love with that I actually love showing up to work for every day. And I love talking to people. I love interviewing people. I love collecting their stories. I love hearing their stories. And I love that everything that we share changes the world, has an impact on people. I just feel like it has a bigger purpose than some of the other bullshit I've done. And it's great that it's free, so that people can, they don't have to really pay to consume it. They can change their lives, and I'll meet people and they're like, yeah, this show or whatever, this author we had on, he changed my life, or she changed my life. And I got approached the other day, a couple weeks ago in the gym. I had my hat on, and guy came up and he was just so excited to meet me. He was telling his friends about how he listened to the podcast, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. And he goes, I love your podcast. And I go, yeah. He goes, you know why? I go, no. And he goes, because it makes me realize how dumb I am. I was like, what? And he goes, no, it makes me realize how much I don't know about everything, and so you help make me smart. And I was like, okay, if that works for you, okay.
Yeah. Getting to that point where we can be coachable, where we, admit that we don't know it, is what a great moment.
Yeah. And so for me, I think the juice is putting a dent in the universe and making a difference in people's lives, and hopefully influencing the people to be better to each other in a better world. And if not, well, then they can just go fight each other with axes or something. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, if we can each make a difference, at least in the people that we touch, then that becomes global. And just being good to the people that we work with, that we work for, we can have a tremendous impact.
Yeah, finding that purpose is really important. I always tell that to entrepreneurs that are coming up. Make sure that you love what you do and your purpose. It just makes such a difference in showing up every day, fully present, as opposed to, oh God, I got to show up here again. Because a lot of people think, I remember when I was the coach of the Jazz during Karl Malone's run, the Utah Jazz basketball team, and he was like, you'd be surprised. It's not just because these guys get paid, mega millions. Sometimes you have to motivate them. And so having something that motivates you with a purpose. So I like how you're tapping into this first generation wealth thing and helping people with this, because they don't, when you have old money, and you have your old money, your uncle, your grandfather goes, oh, here's what you do with your wealth. You put it in a trust fund, and this is normal every day for us here. You don't have those sort of resources. You're just like, and it is weird. I used to be the black sheep of my family because I left the cult religion that they all believed in. But then I was also the golden child. And so they wanted to show me off, but they didn't want to show me off all the time. And so it created, this fucked up relationship with your family, fucked up relationship with your friends. And first generation hard. It really is hard. I never really thought about it.
And that power of purpose that you keep coming back to, it's so critical. We call that the first superpower, and it is the most critical superpower. It's where the clarity comes from, where you get rid of the noise, and it's that tractor beam, that magnetic North Star that pulls you in the right direction. And when you've got that clarity about, hey, this podcast, this show is something I love doing because I get to talk to people and get to have a positive impact on people and share information in a way that really helps them, then that really helps clarify the other things. And I love it when we talk about first generation wealth, and sometimes wealth can get this negative connotation, but like you've talked about, it's that, hey, I'm going to do something really well. And so this cohort, this first gen wealth, they have built skills, they've built businesses, they've built services, done things that hadn't been done before, or in a way that hadn't been done before. And the focus is always on doing that job really well. And it's fun to be around people that care about what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. You love what you do. And when you love what you do, you just want to master it and get better at it. So give people a final pitch out to onboard with you. How can they reach out, get to know you better, your .coms, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. Luken.pro, Luken.pro. There is a form on there for an initial 20-minute consultation that's free. Luken.pro/book. You can get information on the book and some resources that are referenced in the book. It's available wherever books are sold.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Greg.
Really appreciate you, Chris. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks, Sir Honest, for tuning in. Order of the book wherever fine books are sold, so you can check that out as well. And, if you're not already successful financially, pre-read it. I mean, that's what I did with a lot of books when I was graduating high school and coming up, starting my first company at 18. I knew I didn't want to be in construction all my life, so I hoped to be a CEO of a large company someday. So I read a lot of books to prepare for it. And it's a whirlwind sometimes. I mean, our success wasn't overnight, but this successful part was. So we spent a lot of years building it, and then just all of a sudden, just like everything clicked, Yeah. And so it was such a rush. We didn't have time to prepare or anything, and we really didn't have a lot of people to talk to that you could be like, how much do you make? Do you have the same problems we do? And, it was really alienating. Thankfully, there's people with books like yours, and there's different support communities where people can talk to stuff without having to pay an attorney. Back in my day, if you wanted to talk to somebody about money, you had to either talk to an attorney or really high-powered. I think we talked to one person about trusts, and it was like $5,000 a trust or something like that. Wow. This is back in the 90s when $5,000 was like $5,000. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show, Greg. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Ernest, for tuning in. Order the book wherever fine books are sold. Unleash Your Financial Superpowers, how the first-generation wealthy do it, and how you can too. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. Thanks, Greg. We'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out.